I should just change my intro to, hey, I'm Poisonblade, and I swear I'm not an alcoholic. But because today we're transforming an old townhouse into a liquor store, I should just accept the fact that I like building things when there's alcohol involved. So let's get started with that, shall we? So this renovation is not actually the right word for it, I would say. It's like a renovation implies that you keep some of the old stuff. My way of renovating things is you just throw away all of the old stuff and replace it with something completely new. But just for the sake of it, this renovation is, as I said, transforming an old townhouse into a liquor store. And it's also, in a way, an homage to Silver Fox, because I used to do this when we were back in the Mirage Mountains. Like, I included you guys into the builds, and I wanted to do that again. So then I thought, like, because in the Mirage Mountains, I gave somebody a farm, I gave somebody an apothecary, I built an entire mansion for somebody, or at least built those things with them in mind. So I wanted to do that again because it's just really fun. And this build is also very ironic because I asked Silver if he actually drank any alcohol, and he said nope, not really. But I, of course, only asked this after I had already built it, because that's my way of building things for other people in Kayan al-Bashar. You don't get a say, you just smile and nod. And so yeah, the guy who doesn't drink has a liquor store now in Kayan al-Bashar. You're welcome, Silver. But for just the sake of it, it is a fancy store, or at least somewhat fancy, because you only sell wine, which for some reason I think is fancy. Kayan al-Bashar just needed some place where you could just buy a barrel or a casket of wine. Although you also have the option here to drink it on the premises, so it's not the primary purpose of the building, but you can do it. So maybe less fancy, maybe also a little bit less liquor store, more like wine sink. But primary purpose is still for you to not drink the wine on the premises. Anyway, while all of this talking is really fun, I wanted to kind of segue into something else, which I haven't really, well, it just feels like I haven't really talked about the lore of Kayan al-Bashar in depth for quite some time, or at least made a whole video about it, basically. So I want to talk about the journey of Kayan al-Bashar, because Kayan al-Bashar has changed a lot. Also, don't worry about me being very quickly with building a bottle of wine. I had 3 tries on this build, and at, well, the second try I very quickly figured out how to build a somewhat, it's not really a wine bottle, but it gets the job done. Again, I swear I'm not an alcoholic. I just, for some reason, it clicked on how to build a wine bottle that was somewhat convincing. But anyway, yeah, Kayan al-Bashar has come a long way from its initial idea of being tied into real world with the, I think it's the city of Iram or Elam. I always get those names confused because I think one of them is a province in Iraq, but it's basically the city that's supposed to be buried in the Rub al Khali desert on the Arabian Peninsula. And it's kind of like a similar idea as Atlantis. One city is buried beneath the sands, the other one is buried beneath the sea or swallowed by the sea. And that was the initial idea of Kayan al-Bashar. And instead of like making it buried and like in caves, because of course it's going to be buried beneath the sand, so if you want to build it, it's probably in a cave. But instead of that, I just threw it up in the sky because, well, I like that idea of just building a floating city, but also I knew ahead of time that the lighting was going to suck if I built it in a cave, and also it was going to be just really annoying with all the terraforming. Like terraforming for Valhalla, like all the mountains and such, it's not a difficult process, it's just very tedious. Like a lot of building things don't, like, they're not difficult for me, but they're just like, they take a long time and it's not that enjoyable, so they become really tedious. But Kayan al-Bashar became the floating city, and then I built on it and it crashed. Yeah, that's the first version of Kayan al-Bashar. Well, it didn't crash, well, it did, but in a different way. Like, I could get into it, and then I broke down after 10 minutes, it crashed. And yeah, maybe building a station of like 100 and 30,000 pieces, like, or 160. I don't know anymore. Yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea, even though now I've built something for Terra Nova, which is well over 100,000 pieces, and my PC is able to handle it fine. But yeah, the first version of Kayan al-Bashar died. I redid it because I just wanted to, well, Kayan al-Bashar as a project idea was just captured me and didn't let me go, and I wanted to redo it because it was luckily soon enough for me to just like have enough motivation to redo the entire thing of it. And then Kayan al-Bashar grew and I changed the lore completely. Like nowadays Kayan al-Bashar isn't tied to real world stuff anymore, not at all, although it's still somewhat difficult now because there's definitely stuff in Kayan al-Bashar that is tied to real world stuff, like there are gypsy or Romani wagons all over the Mirage Mountains, there's Mashaf Castle, so I have to figure out a way so that the lore makes sense of those things. I still don't have a clue how to make the gypsy / Romani wagons make sense, but we will see what I do with that. But then also, Kayan al-Bashar, at the very first idea of it, was a very deadly and murderous place. Like nobles were assassinating each other left, right, and center. And I've already mentioned this a lot before, but that changed significantly. But I thought it would be fun to then include that change into the lore and like make an event happen in like the history of Kayan al-Bashar that changed all of that. That like Kayan al-Bashar in the past was very murdery, but then the night of the bloody hell, or night of the bloody halls, not the bloody hells, but the bloody halls happened. And yes, that does make me think of a period, like bloody halls, just, I don't know, it just makes me think of a period. But that event happened in which all of like the scheming, manipulation and plotting came to head, and the royal palace of Kayan al-Bashar was just bathed in blood. Like the emperor got too much involved with all the scheming, or all the nobles just on one night just started killing each other. And after that night, laws and rules were set in place to make sure that it didn't happen anymore. So the shadow games, as I call it, and all of the like manipulation, scheming and such became a lot less, and it was a lot more hidden. Open assassination and murder was being frowned upon now because, yeah. I also wrote a character up who went through that night, and it just makes for like a very interesting thing story-wise. But here is the other thing. It's very easy to fall into the pitfall of redoing things or rewriting things from the past, or rewriting things that you have written before, or rebuilding stuff, as I do right now, that I've built in the past. Because, well, you constantly, or at least I constantly get better at building, or at least that's what I feel like, that I've gone better at building. But that makes it so that I look at my old builds and just think I could have done this so much better if I have built it right now. And then I already said that I was going to renovate the entirety of the royal palace. I was actually thinking of redoing some stuff in the Mirage Mountains as well. But then you get into the pitfall of like, you rebuild something, or in the case of writing, you rewrite something because you've gone better at writing or better at building. And then in the process of redoing whatever you did, you become better at it again, and then you redo it again, and you keep redoing like the first few things that you did. And yeah, then you're never going to get any further. So when it comes to renovations in Kayan al-Bashar, I've set like a pretty big boundary of like, yeah, I could probably do this better, but do I want to do it better? Because a lot of stuff is like Mashaf Castle, the town or village of Karshanik, and the floating forest or shattered forest. I forget the names of my own builds. Like, this is also something that one of you guys pointed out. I think Beatrice pointed out. That's like, oh yeah, I forgot about the coffee kangaroo build. Same here. A lot of the names of builds in Kayan al-Bashar I've completely forgotten. And it's just like, what was it again? Luckily, I've put a lot of signposts up of like, oh, this place was named that, and this place was named that. And I forgot the original name of the Temple of the Jinn. don't know what it is anymore, and I can't find it. Well, I think I wrote it down on the signpost, but all of the names have a meaning, and I forgot the name or the meaning of the name of the temple of the Jinn. So if anyone is here sitting like, I have no idea what he built 2 weeks ago or what he built in like the royal palace and such, me neither. But anyways, so I want to somewhat limit myself on like how much am I going to redo, because I know that in the process of redoing stuff I am probably going to get better at building, but then I should at a point stop redoing stuff and just move on, because otherwise, yeah, Kayan al-Bashar is otherwise just going to live forever. Which, I mean, it's not a bad thing for Kayan al-Bashar to basically not have an end, but I would like for Kayan al-Bashar to one time be finished. And if I keep redoing stuff, then that's not going to happen. But yeah, right now the lore of Kayan al-Bashar is just, it's the capital city of the Empire of Byzantium. It's in a rivalry or like a competition on like who is the prettiest or who is the most, well, the biggest city or the most economic important city. Grammar has abandoned me by this point, it seems, but it has a rivaling city in the Empire of Colonia, which is, I would, yeah, it sits on the Bay of Al-Afsat, which that name has a meaning, but I also forgot it. But there's a rivaling thing there, and this actually makes it that Kayan al-Bashar is constantly like, you won't fight in ugly corner in Kayan al-Bashar, because then Colonia could prove, oh, you have that ugly place, we don't have ugly places, so now you're second best. So it's like a city rivalry, but it actually works in, or yeah, grammar is just, well, grammar, sentences, yeah, it's just completely abandoned me, but it actually works to the betterment of the inhabitants, because Kayan al-Bashar is going to look a lot prettier, because they're not going to admit that they are not the prettiest city to Colonia. And also, yeah, I'm right now building something for Sandbox. I have already planned something for Nick, aka Lion Rider, and then there's the S-Stand build. Like, I think he's still somewhat salty about me burning down his house, and then I thought of like, oh, as a nice way to make it up to him for burning down his house, I was going to place a building for him, or place a build for him in the actual city of Kayan al-Bashar, which is, I would say, the highest honor I can give somebody, because the actual city of Kayan al-Bashar is just like all marble and just like pretty boulevards, monuments and all of that. And then I remembered this motherfucker built just a shack for me in, well, it's not really a nature reserve, but it's kind of just like Drew and as them building a village in the swamp right now. But yeah, he gave me a shack. You're going into the suburbs of Kayan al-Bashar, mate, which is the most horrible place to live in Kayan al-Bashar. Worse than the Mirage Mountains, where you'll freeze your ass off. And yeah, the Elysian Fields is just a pretty nice, quiet place. Not really quiet, because is Kayan al-Bashar ever quiet? Kayan al-Bashar is just chaos. But yeah, as then you're going into the suburbs, which is like the most crime-ridden place. Like, it's the slums, but I don't want to call it the slums. Kayan al-Bashar doesn't want to call it the slums. Again, grammar has left me and pronunciation has left me. But it's still going to be pretty, because again, Kayan al-Bashar is not going to allow things to be ugly. But you're going into these suburbs, mate. Yeah, don't piss me off, otherwise you're going into the suburbs. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Next video is going to be building something for a Lion Rider, and I swear no alcohol is involved, because I am not an alcoholic. I should just put that on like a button, and whenever I build something, it's just like, press the button, Poison, press the button, because you're constantly building things with alcohol involved. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, there's the like and subscribe button. If you want to see more, there's also a notification button, but before that one starts working, I will not be building any more bars, taverns, inns, and liquor stores by this point. So that will not ever happen. Hope you enjoyed the video again, and hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye.